Hey everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. I am so excited today for a whole host of reasons, including that today is International Women's Day. So I had to give a shout out to that. And we've got a real kick-ass woman on this show today, Keely Griffith from AUVSI, and her wonderful, wonderful colleague, Michael Robbins, also from AUVSI today. It's going to be an amazing show. I'm just going to tell you, grab your seats, grab your coffee cups. It's going to be fast and furious because we have so many topics to cover. I don't know how possibly we're going to do it in 45 minutes, but this is a month dedicated to future industry and sponsored by Airspace Link. So thank you, Airspace Link. We're going to be talking all about the future industry today in the context of so many things that AUVSI is doing. And so remember, everybody, this is live. Make sure you ask your questions because you've got the experts here. Give us your positive encouragement. We love all of that. And what I want to do first is, Keely, why don't we go ahead and I'm sure people know you, but for those that don't, the handful that might not, that are watching, if you can give us the quick 30-second elevator speech background, that would be awesome.
Sure. So I'm Keely Griffith. I currently serve as the Vice President of Strategic Programs at AUVSI. My background is actually in higher education. I feel very strongly about equipping the future leaders of various industries with what they need to know to really lead us in the way that we should. Integrating in technology is an important part of that. Even when I was serving in business programs, it was really important to understand how are our future employees going to interact with these technologies, develop these technologies, and then find new ways to innovate with the existing technologies to change business. So my current role really lends to that. I support not only programming for AUVSI events like Exponential and Defense and our webinars, that's right, but also our research projects and certifications. So.
Well, awesome. Thank you. Yes, we're going to be talking a lot about education today. And I know education and advocacy are huge portfolios for AUVSI, and that's a great segue over to Michael Robbins. Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Don. Happy to be on the show again. Chief Advocacy Officer for AUVSI. I've been with AUVSI almost 2.5 years, leading all advocacy programs in the air, ground, maritime, and now cyber domains, which I think we'll get into. And before coming to AUVSI full-time, AUVSI was actually one of my clients, specifically working on counter-UAS issues through the firm that I co-founded, Intrepid, in 2015. Before co-founding Intrepid with Lee Moak, who's the president of ALPA, the Airline Pilots Association. Lee and I were at ALPA together for 4 years, where he was the president and I was the managing director. And Lee recruited me off Capitol Hill, where I had been the chief of staff for the late Congressman John Dingell from Michigan. Also in the Navy, in the Reserve, and really love all things uncrewed, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael mentioned, thanks for having me again, because he's a friend to this show. He was on our live stream from the AUVSI Exponential floor last year in Orlando, and also was one of our first guests on our full crew newscast. Sure. So I think it was last August, so go back and check that out. But I want to jump right into this because Michael, AUVSI recently rolled out this Green UAS program, and it raised a lot of questions in the industry. Like, what is this? It's like becoming part of the rainbow, right? We already had blue with Defense Innovation Unit. Now we've got green. And I think we have a really awesome slide that might maybe contrast the difference between green, blue, and your trusted cyber program. So can you walk us through this?
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched our broader Trusted Cyber program kind of at Exponential last year, or at least the concept of it, from the keynote stage, where we had a panel on cybersecurity. in the uncrewed systems industry. And that was sort of the first time AUVSI had really, with the broader community, begun to dug into cybersecurity. That led to our August launch of our Trusted Cyber program, which began as an industry working group. It's now at about 30, 35 companies, ranging from very, very large sort of corporate 500 mega companies to companies of just 2 or 3 people, and sort of the whole spectrum in between, focused on developing a framework of cybersecurity standards for uncrewed systems across all 3 domains. So we've been at that work for about 7-8 months now, and we'll be unveiling those frameworks going into Exponential in May, which we'll talk more about. While we were going through that process, we're obviously talking to a lot of stakeholders in both industry and government, and we were kind of already aware of sort of the challenge that existed, particularly in the small UAS community, where DIU was very successful in rapidly standing up the Blue UAS program in response to the congressional mandate from the National Defense Authorization Act of 2020 that prohibited DoD from acquiring drones with components or manufactured in China. And so DIU sort of handed this mandate of figure it out. How does DoD meet this mandate? And they did a great job then at standing up Blue and sort of creating this rapid vetting program. The challenge was they weren't funded to do it. So they were kind of finding funds as they went along to do both Blue 1.0 and later 2.0. And not a whole lot of companies were actually able to get into the Blue program just because of lack of resources within DIU, because they were sort of given this unfunded mandate. At the same time, the success of the Blue UAS program is sort of that becoming the only sort of cybersecurity program out there and supply chain review program out there. While intended for the DoD, a number of other entities outside the DoD began pointing to Blue as something that they wanted as part of their drone acquisition process. So you had other federal agencies, you had commercial entities, and you had state and local governments all sort of saying, well, we're only going to buy Blue too. And in fact, you actually had some states passing laws saying you can only use Blue UAS drones in our state if you're using state dollars. And that was never the intent of Blue, because Blue was always intended to be a sort of narrower DoD program.
Absolutely. And by the way, Michael, yeah. I want to just interject for 1 second. For those that want to learn more about DIU's Blue program, first of all, they have an incredible website, Defense Innovation Unit. Secondly, they were on the Dawn of Drones just in January with Chad Sweet from Modal AI. It was a great show. We've cut a couple clips from that one. So they go very, very deeply into what Blue is, how to become a part of Blue. And, Michael, look, the reality is Congress is so great at giving unfunded mandates, right? To not only the DoD, but other government entities that are near and dear to our heart, like the FAA as an example. So explain just pretty succinctly then how Green UAS responds to this kind of desire writ large, whether it's from other federal agencies, as you mentioned, or state entities looking for trusted and cyber secure, kind of made in North America, if you will, components and drones.
Yeah. So we worked very closely with DIU to take what they had built in Blue and bring it over into the commercial realm, and while still offering anybody who goes through Green the opportunity to become Blue. So in a lot of ways, Green very closely mirrors Blue, and for the DoD purposes, what they care about, it is an exact mirror. We actually added some additional components to Green, though, to actually make it more robust than the Blue UAS standard, simply because that standard is now a few years old, and technology and the threat environment continues to evolve. So any company that is looking to go through Green can apply on our website, on the AUVSI.org website, and go through the application process of whether they will meet the requirements to be able to go through a supply chain vetting, as well as a cyber penetration test. And it's a fairly robust test. I think a lot of companies will find it to be challenging to meet, but there will be opportunities to do remediation as they're going through the process if they're not able to meet the standards. And the goal is both to offer the end users of drones a more robust set of drones to choose from that have gone through this cyber compliance and supply chain risk management. But also as sort of our name, the broader trusted cyber suggests, build trust in the systems and sort of across the entire framework of uncrewed systems. We're starting with Green UAS and small drones, but we'll be rolling out additional offerings for other types of uncrewed systems as well, larger drones, advanced air mobility, uncrewed vehicles and automated cars and trucks and such. So this is just sort of the beginning for us.
No, I love that you've done that. Two quick questions on it, just common sense. Number one, do you have to be an AUVSI member to apply?
You do not, and we do give a small discount to AUVSI members to incentivize that, but anybody can apply. And you had mentioned earlier sort of North America supply chain. That is not a requirement, but it does. So, and we've had already companies that are in the program from outside the United States, including Europe, Australia, and I believe Israel. So it's not necessarily the United States or North America. It is to be NDA compliant, though, looking at specifically components not from China.
Okay, and then like DIU and their Blue program, are you transparently posting on your website those companies that then ultimately qualify so people can go to that list in a public, a very public way to see, okay, what's out there?
Yeah, awesome question. So on our website now, we have the companies listed that are in the program, or at least some of them. A few of them, we need to get us their logo to be uploaded. but yes, we will be listing both the companies that are going through the process and then highlighting those that come out on the other end as green. Also, anybody that comes out on the other end as green will also be on the aforementioned DIU Blue UAS hub that you mentioned earlier. So in the eyes of DIU, a Green UAS platform has met the same standards as Blue. So, when DoD customers are on the Blue UAS hub looking for drones, they'll see the Green UAS drones there as well. Those Green UAS drones won't have that sort of DIU authority to operate, that ATO piece. But if they have a DoD sponsor willing to help them go through the ATO process at DIU, they can go from that sort of green to blue. The only difference on the government side between green and blue will be that ATO piece.
So it gives them a little leg up. And I'm just curious because I was wondering about this. Green has that connotation of environmental, but it also is like in the military, like on a stoplight chart, green, you're a go. I assume it's the latter and why you chose the color green.
It is green is go. Yes, we had a lot of debate about that because green can also mean like sort of host nation forces or sort of ally forces. Green, blue, red. But we really did think of it as green equals go.
Okay, gotcha. All right, awesome. And one last question, then we're going to Keely, Michael, for you. So in kind of the landscape, the Green UAS program and your Trusted Cybersecurity program, there's a nexus there. Could you explain just very briefly that nexus then?
Yeah, absolutely. So Green is sort of the first offering of the Trusted Cyber program. So Trusted Cyber is sort of our larger, all-encompassing. There will be additional offerings that will come out of that program, but Green is sort of the first element of that. And we took a lot of lessons learned from building the broader cybersecurity frameworks within the Trusted Cyber program and applied them to Green to strengthen what had initially been done by DIU for Blue. So as I mentioned, for the DoD purposes, Green equals Blue, but Green actually goes a little bit further than Blue because of some of the lessons learned we drew from Trusted Cyber. Trusted Cyber is going to set an even higher bar, an even higher threshold for industry to meet, and that's really something that we're taking from industry demand. We're getting that from customers, the end users of drones, that they want an even higher threshold of cybersecurity built into the drones. So Trusted Cyber is going to have both, or not just both, but product security, remote operations and connectivity security, supply chain review, as well as corporate hygiene cybersecurity. So it's going to be a very robust standard, and we're building that from input from our community.
Awesome. And it looks like we do have a question from the audience. So Keely, hold tight and get to you. But this one looks like it is still for Michael because it's on this topic. Shannon Knutson is saying, good morning. When will you open Green up to larger UAS, Michael?
Yeah, great question. I don't know that we will. Instead, I think what we'll probably do is offer something different than Green for large UAS. And the plan is to launch that before Exponential. So probably late April, early May, because Exponential's April 8th through 11th. So we're working on that now, and happy to discuss, Shannon, offline, what company you're with, and learn more about it. Would love your input. But we're working with companies like Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and others to focus on large UAS cybersecurity standards. And there's a number of other companies that have involved in that process as well.
All right. Well, big reveal then. You heard it here first on the Dawn of Drones, the larger UAS component of this, a trusted cybersecurity green-like program coming to you soon. So that's really exciting. All right, Keely, over to you. We're going to talk pivot now. We're talking about future industry today. And one of the things that is so critical to the future industry and even the industry today, frankly, is the workforce. And so can you tell us a little bit about some of the workforce development programs and initiatives that you're helping to lead?
Sure. Where to start?
I know, so, it's a long list. 5 minutes go.
Oh man. Okay.
No, you got
I think the best place to start is really understanding, why we need to develop the workforce in the way that we do. So research on why students choose careers in the STEM related workforces shows that we have to start recruiting the next generation of workers in these fields much earlier than college and vocational training. So if you're just starting the recruitment and buy-in process out of college or in college, that's not really enough. This is particularly true of minority groups. So last year, Brian Wynn, our CEO, served on the FAA Act Task Group 12, and they were tasked with developing recommendations on advanced air mobility and UAS operations into K through 12 curriculums. Yep. And they found that in order to increase the capacity of our national aviation workforce, we clearly needed to identify and support opportunities to close those existing gender and racial gaps. Efforts to generate greater excitement among students in our industry include engaging at community events, sponsorship of STEM competitions, the development and participation in school programs and clubs, beginning at the primary level and then moving up through high school, and even by working with programs like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of America. You're going to be really familiar with organizations, and Dawn, I know you are, for Drone Soccer League, and they train community partners to build new student programs and leagues. Again, just making those connections. And I think that that's a big part of what my role is, and something I'm very passionate about, is how can we create better linkages between industry and academia, not just that higher ed academia, but even sort of those primary levels. So there's an opportunity here to leverage expanding interest in the era of aviation renaissance to include STEM and aviation education into K through 12 curriculums. I think you're going to start to see a greater number of educators looking to understand how to implement drone technology in particular into their classrooms in a meaningful way. In fact, we have a number of educators that are going to attend Exponential this year and some unique programming to meet their needs. So if you are attending the event and you see them down on the floor or sitting in sessions, they're really trying to understand what they need to do to change their own curriculum and the way that they're approaching students. For community colleges and technical schools, organizations like the National Center for Autonomous Technologies, which is an NSF ATE program, they're working to craft, adapt, and implement educational resources to support educators of those related programs. So NCAT's also participating in Exponential and partnering with us to create some content that's unique for those audiences. You're also going to see organizations like Drone Up and the partnership that they developed with the university to create their Flight Academy, which is a training program to prepare pilots for drone delivery and flight services. Getting those hours in, and I'll just go a little bit on a side. Those hours in a flight is just not enough. There are certain proficiencies that pilots and operators of these systems need to understand. AUVSI, and I oversee this program, is our Trusted Operator Program, and it is a training program for remote operators and a framework that is outlined and measured against specific industry standards, existing industry standards. If you're looking at training programs, you want to make sure that whatever the curriculum that is included directly aligns aligns to what those industry standards are as an organization when you're looking for pilots. That is also important. So that's just a little bit of a plug there. Schools like Virginia Tech, Embry-Riddle, North Carolina State University, Warren County Community College have all adopted the program, and we're excited to see that continue to expand. I'll give a little plug here. I know we were talking a little bit about cybersecurity with Michael Robbins, and this is actually a great area of opportunity for education. There was a podcast with the Hudson Institute, and they were talking about how they tried to integrate in cybersecurity into different academic programs for engineering. There's simply just not enough space in those existing programs to introduce it in a robust way. So looking for additional certifications or education opportunities to really equip our industry is really necessary. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Okay, that was a quick around the world from like K through really adult like drone pilot training that you're talking about. And to pile on to what you said, Keely, 100%. Lots of educators come to AUVSI. I love that. In fact, we've got a scholars program for our Law Tech Connect co-located event. We'll throw that, marketing tile up with the registration link later. Talk a little bit more about that later. But some of the schools you mentioned are going to be attending as scholars to my event, so I'm really excited about that. Drone Up, love what they're doing. Was just out there at Walmart store number 100 in Bentonville, Arkansas, interviewing them for a PBS special that I'm going to be doing, hopefully launching later this year. So really exciting that they partnered with a college to do that kind of training. It's really critical. But to your point, getting these kids inspired younger is key, and there's so many great nonprofits out there that have that as their mission. And the last thing I'll say is perhaps not a formal training kind of program, but what the AUVSI local chapters are doing from a community engagement standpoint, I think definitely dovetails with that education piece, because once mom and dad and grandmom and grandpa, they get excited about drones because they see it, it's so much easier then for the schools to start adopting it, or even as a club, because parents have to pay for clubs. So lots of ways to get this excitement going. And I love how AUVSI has tentacles like kind of in all of it, because it's abundantly necessary. So thanks for everything you do. We are going to talk about exponential a little bit later, so I'm going to come back to you, Keely. But we've been talking a little bit about the state level. Michael, you alluded to it. Some of these states are adopting laws that are saying that you can only buy, blue UAS if you're going to work with our state. We've got these state chapters. So much going on at the state level. Michael, I'm going to pivot back to you and talk a little bit about Drone Prepared. Y'all launched this, I'm going to say last year, and I know Scott Stofman has been a huge piece of this. By the way, everybody, if you missed Scott in our clubhouse last week with Maggie Schuster, we have most of that audio available on my YouTube channel. We'll drop that link, so go back and listen to that on demand. It was a great discussion, very in depth. But Michael, just give us kind of that 30,000-foot overview of Drone Prepared.
Yeah, so we launched Drone Prepared last December, as you mentioned, sort of anticipation of the 2023 legislative session, and in most states that have now kicked off. A few states haven't begun yet. And the idea was to give states the tools necessary to, as the name implies, become drone prepared and sort of become a hub for economic activity around the commercial use of drones, whether that's for infrastructure inspection or drones as a first responder, or any of the numerous use cases that drones have. And it's going to be different in each state, of course. And what we had been seeing in 2022 and in other years was that states were tending to go in the wrong direction and actually trying to restrict the use of drones because they either had misinformation or they just didn't have the right tools. So Drone Prepared was really a toolkit to give them those tools that include a model legislation, which is now law in Mississippi. Our Drone Prepared bill was signed into law last week. So we're very excited about that. And it's been introduced in a number of other states as well. Additionally, the toolkit has a number of other tools, including white papers, fact sheets, a legal brief, just sort of setting the record straight on what states legally can and cannot do and should not do. So it's both legal as well as looking at it from an economic standpoint, it's how best to position your state for success.
Well, I think it's so critical because, you know, so many members of the public don't understand the value that drones can bring to society. There's so many negative news stories. And frankly, here we go with the drone prepared logo. I love that, by the way. You know, you see this trickle up to the legislators. They don't understand. And frankly, even to state level departments of transportation, you know, down through the municipal level folks, they're not planning for any of this in their plans. And it's just like, you are getting left behind. I mean, we saw last year, let's just call it an upset, right? In the Mercata Center's, you know, kind of state drone preparedness report, if you will. I know people question the criteria used, but it's primarily a legal criteria. And, you know, Oklahoma came out on top and knocked off North Dakota. So folks were reeling, really interesting. But great that you have that website. Great that things are happening. And by the way, if you're not following Michael or Keely on Twitter or on LinkedIn, you need to do that because, you know, they're always pushing out stuff. Plus, of course, AUVSI as well. I saw a really cool thing on Twitter yesterday where I think it was Wyoming. There were states close to Colorado, to my home, where it was like, all right, their legislative sessions are over. This one pretty good, right? So I love that you're kind of ranking, if you will, or rating what's happening in these states. I think it's super important to people understand that as businesses grow and are looking at where do we expand to, where's a good place to operate. That's going to make a difference, and that's going to impact the economic development and viability of those states, you know, if they don't frankly get on board. But yeah, great. Thank you for talking about that. And you know, I'm gonna throw it out to both of you. I don't know who can answer this. Beyond visual line of sight, we're talking about things that can open up the industry, right? Future industry. You know, that report, the Aviation Rulemaking Committee report, came out about this time last year. It's been a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where are we on this? Because we've got the FAA Reauthorization Act coming up, you know, later this year. You know, what's kind of the feeling out there? What are the expectations? What is AUVSI very specifically kind of advocating for on its agenda with Congress in this regard?
Good question. So I'll address the first part of your question first as to like, where are we? We're still a long way off, unfortunately. So we actually were at the FAA last week on Tuesday or Wednesday, I forget which day, because it all blurs, for a listening session with a number of FAA executives and 20 members of industry that the AUVSI pulled together to go in and speak with FAA executives about the BVLOS rulemaking and where it stands. All that will be part of the Federal Register because they're in the process now. So all that will be made public soon. And you know, frankly, it's not awesome news, at least in terms of timeline. We're expecting the FAA to put out a draft notice of proposed rulemaking in February of next year, so February of 24. So that's 23 months after the ARC report came out.
Wow.
That's tough for an industry.
Well, wait a minute, Michael. Are you saying they're not going to put it out on Christmas Eve like they do every year? You know,
I mean, I would be happy with that because that's a little bit sooner.
Rule. Yeah, I know that's great, but yeah, this will probably be Valentine's Day or something.
Yeah. Sooner the better. You know, I'd like it Memorial Day or you know, what holiday is, but you know, I think that you know, we're struggling with that timeline a bit, and we made that clear to the FAA last week that because that's just the draft. Because then there's a comment period, and then they have to adjudicate the comments, and then they'll move towards, you know, finalizing the final rule, which, you know, as we remember from the remote ID process, you know, the time it takes to go from NPRM to final rule can take a very long time because
2 years.
Yeah, not only going through the FAA process, then it's through DOT, then it's through OMB, and the OIRA process at the White House, and then it's back to FAA. So
and then you know, 53,000 comments on remote ID. Right. I imagine this is going to garner possibly even more. given that the right-of-way rules, depending on which way they go with that, you know, and then that's barring any lawsuits that, you know, further could delay like the implementation. Oh, you're making me sad, Michael. I hate to hear that, but
Yeah.
let's end this on a positive note because, you know, what I've seen, and I think both of you would agree, is the FAA leaning a little bit more forward on those waivers then to Part 107 to, okay, we don't have a rule, but we're going to still try to, you know, assist industry by opening up the aperture on further flights, you know, one-to-many, things like this, where we're seeing some unprecedented waivers rolling out in the last even just 30, 60 days,
That's
I'd
right.
say. Yeah.
I think all of these listening sessions and the pressure that AUVSI industry is keeping on the FAA and Congress is really helping to continue to, while that rulemaking, there's not a whole lot we can do about that timeline, although we are asking Congress to put some constraints on the FAA's, you know, ability to stretch it out any further.
Yeah.
They are definitely looking for ways to use the tools they already have to enable more beyond visual line of sight flights to occur and
Yeah.
to continue to advance the industry through those sort of waivers. 107, 44807, I think that's going to play a much bigger role going forward. I think the agency sees that as a bridge between where we are today and you know, the final rulemaking, and sort of leaning on that 44807 risk-based waiver authority to really allow more complex operations to occur and allow industry to scale a little bit more.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is we just have to continue to maintain very open lines of communication with the FAA so that they are continuing to get that feedback from industry, what's working, what's not.
Well, you know, we talked a little bit about indirectly about another one of AUVSI's priorities, I believe, you know, the enhancing competitiveness for U.S. drone manufacturers. You know, that obviously your Green UAS, the trusted cybersecurity program, are components of that. Do you anticipate, or are you advocating for additional legislation from Congress on that topic? Because, you know, we've seen things like the CHIPS Act, you know, in the last year, which has an effect. You know, I think we saw there was a recent proposal on drones that was just advertised, and I'm sorry, I can't remember it off the top. I didn't put it in my notes. But what very specifically, we are getting super low on time already, 15 minutes. So I want to get back to Keely. But I do want to hit this topic, and I want to hit spectrum policy, because I saw the FCC put out some rulemaking, and then, you know, yeah. So go ahead on that.
Sure. So on increasing competitiveness for American manufacturing of drones, I use that language specifically because that's the name of our legislation that we are shopping on Capitol Hill right now.
Okay,
so,
okay, gotcha.
We actually have a proposal that's part of our FAA reauthorization. And while this probably, you know, will be outside the jurisdiction of the FAA reauthorizing committees, it's timely to discuss with them. But most of what we're advocating for is going to be through committees that do tax code. So like the House Ways and Means Committee, we're focusing on incentives like those in the CHIPS Act that you mentioned, which, by the way, also greatly benefits the drone industry, and using some of the success stories from the CHIPS Act, from the Solar Energy Manufacturing Act, which was a bill that was designed to level the playing field for solar companies in the U.S. That were being harmed by the dumping of Chinese solar panels into the U.S. Some of those lessons learned from other industries, we're trying to replicate those type of programs to enhance the competitiveness of U.S. drone manufacturers. We're actually going to be launching a larger initiative around this ahead of Exponential. So you're hearing this first on Donna Drones podcast.
All right, another one. Woohoo!
So yeah, you're getting all the news today. We're really excited about this. We'll have some more details coming out on it soon, but we'll
can't tell us. Is it going to be a color? Is it going to be like the purple, you know, like UAS?
I don't think, maybe we'll have a color associated with it, but it's definitely going to be an aggressive advocacy campaign.
Okay, sweet. All right. So once again, you heard it here first. And then spectrum, you know, spectrum is one of those things, not a lot of people understand it. It's so critically important. Like I said, the FCC just put out recent kind of, I believe, something for comment. I know I posted it on LinkedIn.
Notice of proposed rulemaking, yeah.
Yeah. NPRM there. So are you advocating for dedicated spectrum for drones or just for certain one? For all?
For different types of drones, different types of spectrum. We're actually still working through our comments. They're due, I think, Thursday or Friday. So we're still soliciting member feedback. We've got, like as we do with the Big Trade Association, we've got some challenges, some differences of opinion between some of our members that we're sorting out right now. So we'll be making our comments public later this week. But we're definitely commenting. It's an important rulemaking. It definitely, begins to, align the thinking of a very important regulator that often is forgotten in our industry. It's beginning to align their thinking with the evolution of drones and really, dedicating some spectrum, or at least allowing access to spectrum, even if it's not dedicated spectrum, for that C2 link, which is so important.
And don't forget, everybody, like the FCC also gives licenses for satellites, like that, satellite communications. So when you think about the drone industry, whether it's spectrum and frequency in those bands, or you think about satellites and how the FCC has been super active lately in that arena, it's something you got to keep your eye on and really get educated about. So thanks for that. 2 seconds. I want to address one last thing with you, Michael. Then we're going to Keely. Counter-UAS. This is not a 2-second conversation. I know there's going to be companies at AUVSI that will be on the showcase floor. I'm having a panel dedicated to the clueless, careless criminal and dealing with those. Counter-UAS as a component of that. What is AUVSI's role in the counter-UAS world? Because so many people misunderstand counter-UAS, but to me, it's an industry enabler. You can't have a future industry unless you can detect those careless, clueless criminals, and you have the authority, quite frankly, to do something about it if you need to, and not just maybe at the federal level. That's just my plug. But real quick, the 2 seconds, like what are we doing here?
Yeah, so it's part of our FAA reauthorization priorities as well. We're actively talking to Congress and the administration about how best to move forward with reauthorizing the Emerging Threats Act, expanding some of the authorities of federal authorities, and perhaps looking at some delegation of authority down to state and local. A lot of work still needs to be done by FAA, DHS. More coordination is required, but it's a huge priority for us.
Yeah, it's got to be a huge priority for everybody, quite frankly. I mean, if the Ukraine-Russia war, I'll call it, that's what Russia's calling it now, clearly it is any indicator, counter-UAS is very important because it's not really hard to imagine this happening in the domestic environment from a homeland security standpoint. So, Keely, I'm going to pivot hard right, totally different topic. But maybe not, because we just talked about Exponential and some of those folks that will be on your floor. Let's talk about Exponential. I know we've got a couple cool images I want to pop up here. This was last year, right? So tell us a bit more.
So the event last year was wonderful, just coming out of COVID. It was kind of one of the first big events for our industry. Really great showing, a nice building year. We're excited to be coming back in Denver this coming May 8th through the 11th. If you don't have plans to be there, really, you're going to be left out. So I encourage you to go ahead and book those hotels, book those flights, and register for the event. I will give a plug really quickly. May 8th, which is our pre-conference day, meaning the expo hall floor isn't open yet. There is a lot of programming happening. And I know we'll talk about the Law Tech Connect workshop. There are some additional workshops where you can get some hands-on training, dive deep into some very specific topics that are relevant to the community. And it's funny, it fits perfectly with some of the topics we've already talked about. Cybersecurity is going to be huge at Exponential this year. You're going to see it worked in throughout all of the different tracks, the keynote stage, spotlight sessions, as well as beyond visual line of sight. I believe I counted, it's I think 11 plus sessions that are devoted exclusively to talking about that topic and hashing out some of the issues that our community is facing there. And then counter-UAS will also be present. And so I'm excited about the way that the program's building. Would you like to have just a quick hit on what the topics are going to be?
Well, you know what? Yes, very quick, because we also have a question from Carolina Airshots I want to get to. And by the way, everybody, that last picture that was just up, I want to give a shout out. That was Michael Wilbur from AUVSI with the Undersecretary of Defense for Research. She is the Chief Technology Officer. So when you think about International Women's Day and women in STEM, here is someone that has made it to the top of the DoD and making a difference. So thanks for sharing that photo with us as well, you guys. So go ahead, Keely, real quick. What are the topics that we're covering at AUVSI? And then we're going to get to Carolina Airshot's question.
Sure. So overall theme is the blueprint for autonomy. And the idea is that we'll be talking through how to design, integrate, operationalize, and then realize the potential within this industry. So we have breakout sessions, workshops are going to be pretty heavy this year because we want to take a deeper dive and do some more collaborative learning. And then obviously the legal and policy issues are a major piece of that integration. So most of the programs listed online, if you haven't had a chance, go take a look. And feel free to reach out to me with questions. I'm always happy to talk about the program.
Yeah, there's so much great content. It's like, it's crazy, honestly. Carolina Airshots is asking, and I think this is a Michael question, what do you think the chances are of the weight limit being raised from 250 grams to 1 kilogram to not register and be remote ID compliant?
Not good. Yeah, I don't see the FAA making that change, at least not anytime in the immediate future. No.
Yeah, you know, remote ID, lots of that, lots of information on remote ID. We're not going to get to that, but go to AUVSI Exponential. Lots of educational content is going to be addressing that. That's probably a great segue to very briefly talk about our Law Tech Connect co-located workshop, Keely. This is one thing we do on Mondays. As Keely said, there are other workshops that same day. Ours is a full day event from 8 until 5. That's the registration code. All about law and policy and the intersection of that with technology. Incredible faculty. Scan that code not only to register, but to check out our world-class faculty, our agenda, and get a good idea. This is our second year, by the way. Our inaugural event was last year. It was so great. We decided to do it again, and our scholars programs really exploded. We were going to have so many folks there. By the way, Keely said come in Monday, come in Sunday so you can make these events. And not only that, when you make your reservations, make it early enough to attend our networking event at the Urban Putt. You heard it here first. This is the third reveal on this show. The Urban Putt, 7 to 9 p.m. on Sunday evening. We're going to have a pre-event networking, basically soiree, if you will. So please join us there. And let's see what else. Okay, real quick, we got like 3 minutes left. We've been talking a lot about legislation, about engagement, about education, and I think AUVSI's Hill Day is upcoming, and it's kind of the combination of all three of those things. So I don't know which one of you can very briefly tell us what is Hill Day and what can we expect?
Yeah, so Hill Day is March 22nd. It is open to our advocacy committee level members, and we'll be up on Capitol Hill for the day, as the name suggests, speaking to lawmakers about our various Capitol Hill priorities across all domains. So it's air, ground, maritime, and cyber. So we're commercial and defense. So we're really excited about it.
And speaking of which, and kind of dovetailing back to Drone Prepared, you know, a lot of states have either a Hill Day or they have an Aerospace Day. I know in Colorado, ours is next Monday, March 13th. Our AUVSI Rocky Mountain chapter is going to be out in force. So make sure you're engaging at that grassroots level. That's the whole point of Drone Prepared, and just one example. Back to education, Keely. I know we're down to like 2 minutes, and so this is going to be another 2-second answer. You've got this AVIL platform that you all created in the last year. I probably just butchered the name again. And tell us about that, what it is, and how it's going.
Sure, really quickly. So it is AVIL, you didn't butcher it. It's AUVSI's learning and engagement platform. It's free, open to anyone. You don't have to be an AUVSI member. It was really created as a space for our community to start sharing resources, providing education, and to facilitate discussions outside of events like Exponential, which yield a lot of those things. We need it to happen on an ongoing basis. I get asked often from other associations in vertical markets, hey, what does our market need to know about autonomy or uncrewed systems? How can we better understand how to integrate these into our own operations and improve of business. Okay, great. We're pulling them into this same space. So it's the opportunity they get to learn from experts in our field and making, I think, some great connections between solution seekers and solution providers.
No, it's awesome. And I know we taped all of our panels last year at Law Tech Connect, and they are on AVIL as a course. So in fact, lawyers out there, you can get CLE credit for like a ridiculously cheap price if you want to do it. Everybody else can just watch it or just watch it for free. So if you want to know what our event's about, go check it out. We have some incredible panels, and it's all up there for free unless you want that CLE credit transferable from Florida. All right, we are at the end of our time. I know we missed a ton, so I'm going to give you each like 30-second closing comments, and we will start with Keely and we're going to end with Michael. So Keely, over to you.
I would just say it's time to get engaged. If you're just listening on the edges to these podcasts or maybe attending an event every few years, really our community, for it to grow, it means that you have to be involved. You need to be engaged in the sessions as speakers. And our organization is always looking for opportunities to make the right connections. So reach out anytime that you have questions or that I can ever support.
Awesome. And Michael, over to you.
Yeah, I'll just echo the engagement theme. If you want to get engaged in any element of AUVSI, whether that's advocacy or education or something else, reach out to us, and we'd be happy to get you engaged either with us, at national or perhaps even more importantly, locally with your chapter. As you mentioned, Don, a big key to the success of our drone prepared, but also our broader advocacy campaign is really driven by local grassroots efforts, and that begins with our chapters.
If you're in this industry and you haven't joined AUVSI yet, you need to do that. It's a no-brainer. They have a sliding scale. If you're a veteran, it's cheaper. If you're a student, it's cheap. I mean, it's just like amazing. It's literally a no-brainer. And I want to just close on this. We're 2 minutes over, but I want to also thank AUVSI for not only partnering with me and my company P3 Tech on Law Tech Connect. It's such an awesome event, but also on this podcast this year. Mike, my producer, and myself, we are honored to be working with you and your team, and just having a great year so far. So stay tuned, everybody. Check out Donna Drones on AUVSI. It's on their YouTube channel. It's on their website, all of our back episodes from this year. So that's all she wrote, everybody. We are out here.